June 1947, the Straits of Malacca. Two American ships pick up a chilling distress call that would go down in history as the ultimate maritime nightmare.
All officers, including captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead.
Then one final terrifying message.
I died.
Section 1. The Static from the Void. It began with a sound that shouldn't have existed. Imagine the radio room of the Silver Star, an American vessel cruising through the calm midnight waters. The air is still, the stars are bright, and the rhythm of the waves is hypnotic. Suddenly, a cacophony of frantic Morse code tears through the silence. It was the SS Ourang Medan. The message started with a chilling inventory of death. All officers, including captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge. The voice behind the code wasn't just reporting, it was trembling through the wires. There were no mentions of a storm, no reports of an attack. But the most haunting part was the silence that followed for several long minutes. The rescuers listened, hearts pounding against their ribs, waiting for a coordinate, a name, anything. Then the static cleared for one final agonizing breath. Two words that changed everything. I die. Because of this final, hopeless whisper, the crew of the Silver Star knew they weren't just going on a rescue mission. They were sailing into a nightmare that had no exit. Section 2. The Meat Locker of the Pacific. As the Silver Star approached, the SS Ourang Medan looked like a monument of rust drifting against the blue horizon. From a distance, there were no signs of a struggle, no battle scars on the hull, and no smoke. But as the first rescue boat pulled alongside the massive iron wall of the ship, the atmosphere changed instantly. The air didn't smell like the salty ocean anymore. It smelled like heavy, stagnant dread. When the rescuers finally climbed the ladder and stepped onto the main deck, they were greeted by a silence so thick it felt physical. The tropical sun was burning at 100 degrees, yet the ship was radiating a bone-chilling cold. Because of this inexplicable temperature drop, the men felt like they had stepped out of reality and into a giant floating meat locker. Then they saw them, the crew. They weren't just dead, they were frozen in a moment of absolute, unspeakable trauma. Men were lying on their backs, their arms outstretched, their fingers clawing at an invisible enemy in the empty air. Their eyes were wide open, staring directly at the blazing sun with pupils that refused to constrict. But the most terrifying detail was their faces. Everyone, from the lowliest deckhand to the captain himself, had the exact same expression of paralyzing, soul-crushing fear. Because of this uniform look of horror, it became clear to the rescuers that this wasn't a simple accident. Something had looked at these men, and they had died simply from the terror of what they saw. Even the ship's dog, a small terrier, was found dead in a mid-growl position, his teeth bared at a corner of the deck, where absolutely nothing stood. Section 3. The Ghost in the Machine. The rescuers pushed through the heavy iron doors leading to the bridge, and the air grew even thinner, even colder. Inside the chart room, they found the captain, still upright in his chair, his eyes fixed on the horizon as if he was watching the very end of the world. There were no signs of a struggle, no spilled ink, no ruffled papers. But as they moved toward the radio room, the smell of ozone and burnt hair began to fill their lungs. This was the source of the transmission. This was the place where the final words of the Ourang Medan were born. They found the radio operator slumped over his desk, his lifeless hand still resting on the transmitting key. His face was a mirror of the men on the deck, frozen in a scream that never escaped his throat. The Silver Star's captain decided to tow the vessel back to port to solve this impossible puzzle. Because of this decision, the men began securing the tow lines, hoping to drag this iron grave back to civilization. But the ocean had other plans. Without warning, a thick, acrid smoke began pouring out of the number 4 cargo hold. It wasn't a normal fire. It was a sudden, violent eruption of heat that seemed to come from the very soul of the ship. The rescuers had no choice but to cut the lines and flee for their lives. Minutes later, a gargantuan explosion ripped through the Ourang Medan, lifting the massive vessel out of the water before it collapsed and sank into the abyss. Because of this catastrophic end, every single piece of physical evidence was incinerated and buried under miles of dark water, leaving behind nothing but a haunting echo in the radio waves. Section 4. The Forbidden Cargo and the Paper Trail. After the Ourang Medan vanished beneath the waves, a new kind of silence began. The silence of bureaucracy. When researchers looked for the ship in the official Lloyd's shipping register, they found nothing. It was as if the vessel had never existed. But in 1954, a series of declassified CIA documents surfaced, mentioning a chilling incident in the Malacca Strait that matched the Ourang Medan perfectly. Why would the most powerful intelligence agency in the world be interested in a ghost story? Because of this sudden interest from the shadows, historians began to look at the ship's cargo instead of its ghosts. The theory is as dark as it gets. After World War II, the infamous Unit 731, Japan's secret biological warfare division, had stockpiles of lethal nerve gases like tabun and sarin. It is believed the Ourang Medan was smuggling these forbidden chemicals to a secret location. But these chemicals are incredibly unstable. If seawater leaked into the cargo hold, it would have created a toxic, invisible cloud that paralyzed the nervous system of everyone on board instantly. Because of this silent, agonizing gas, the crew wouldn't have had time to run. They would have died exactly where they stood, their faces twisting into those iconic masks of horror as their lungs failed. This explains the cold bodies and the explosion, but it doesn't explain why the world tried so hard to delete the Ourang Medan from the history books. Section 5. The hum of the void. If it wasn't gas and it wasn't ghosts, then what could possibly cause a mass death that leaves no physical marks? Some scientists point to a terrifying natural phenomenon known as infrasound. These are low-frequency sound waves caused by shifting tectonic plates or massive undersea storms that the human ear cannot hear. But the human body can feel them. Infrasound at specific frequencies can cause intense feelings of dread, vivid hallucinations, and even trigger a massive heart attack. Imagine the entire crew suddenly hearing a sound that they couldn't perceive, but it made them believe their worst nightmares were coming to life. Because of this invisible vibration, they weren't fighting a monster. They were fighting their own minds until their hearts simply shattered. However, the most disturbing theory remains the simplest one. The Ourang Medan was a black ship, a vessel that officially didn't exist, carrying things that officially weren't real. But the fact that the Silver Star's logbooks were altered and the Coast Guard reports were kept under lock and key for decades tells us one thing. Someone knew exactly what happened on that ship. Because of this wall of silence, the Ourang Medan has become more than just a shipwreck. It is a warning, a reminder that there are places on this planet where the rules of the world we know simply stop working. The ocean never forgets. The sea is vast, and it is very good at keeping secrets. To this day, the wreck of the SS Ourang Medan lies somewhere at the bottom of the Malacca Strait, covered in silt and forgotten by time. But the look of terror on those men's faces remains etched in the archives of the unexplained. Was it a government cover-up, a biological nightmare, or something from the cracks between dimensions? Because of this enduring mystery, we may never know the truth. But one thing is certain. If you ever find yourself in the middle of a calm ocean and hear the static of a radio crying out, "I die," pray that you are not the one who finds the ship. What do you think really happened? Let me know in the comments below.